Hello, I'm excited to share a kind of big project actually today, and I'm going to break it down into some smaller steps. It is how do we turn yarn into hexagons into this great Afghan. So piece by piece, we're going to work on it. I am sharing this book as well, Until Unity by Frances Chan, that I literally just finished today. I think it really works into our theme this month in Learning to See Studios of Unity. And during the transformative studio time, I worked on this Afghan and thinking and praying about unity and how all these little pieces, all these little steps lead to something really big. So I'm going to give you a little demo, and then I'm going to just let you watch how I crochet one hexagon and bind it together as I do a little voiceover about some of my other thoughts on this. So I hope you enjoy, and I'm going to get started now. So first of all, the supplies I used: just one crochet hook. This is a size 6 crochet hook, a little pair of scissors from Hobby Lobby, the Yarn Bee Soft Secret yarn in ivory, mushroom, and biscuit, and some time. One thing I really enjoy about this style of project is all you ever work on at one time is this size of a piece. So you can see it's just a little bit bigger than my palm, so it makes transporting it super easy. I just put it in a bag, one ball of each yarn color, a crochet hook and scissors, and then as I built up like a pile of these, then I would take them out and combine them into the Afghan, and then I kept that in a separate bag at home because it does get pretty bulky. To start with, I'm going to use the biscuit yarn color, and in the write-up I will include some more tutorial links on YouTube that use the official proper names of everything. I'm not a professional crochet person, but I find that sometimes just do it. Be consistent. Even if you're doing something a little tiny bit, maybe not properly 100% accurate, be consistent and it's going to turn out. Don't let perfection stop you from trying. I'm going to create a slip knot to start with. So you just create a loop and pull it through. And you tighten it up on your hook. And I like to try to keep this tail here a little bit short because it's essentially waste. You need some to hang on to and some to bury in to hold the stitch so that the whole pattern doesn't come unraveled, but you don't need a long tail here. So I'll do it one more time for good measure. Loop. And pull through and cinch. Then I'm going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3. Then I'm going to use a slip stitch to close this gap. You can also do a magic circle for this beginning part. Whichever you do, whichever makes sense for you, just be consistent. All right, so that's closed. And then you're going to chain 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you're going to yarn over. I'm going to go through the middle. I like to tuck this tail right on top here, trying to bury it as I go. You're going to pull the yarn through. So you have 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over, pull through the first 2. You now again have 2 on your hook. Yarn over and pull through. So you're going to create this little loop here. Chain 2, 1, 2. You're going to do the double crochet again, so yarn over through that very center. Yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through, chain 2, 1, 2, double crochet through the middle. This first round is the trickiest with trying to hold all the different pieces together. Chain 2. What you're wanting in the end are 6 of these. So 1, 2, 3, 4. This will be number 5 of the double crochet. You're creating like a spoke, the core of like a wagon wheel. So 6 spokes on it is what you want. Chain 2 between each double. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I always triple count these because if you get the number of spokes here, right at the core, right at the start wrong, you won't get the final hexagon shape that you want. So again, 6 spokes on the wheel. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You're going to chain 2, and then you're going to slip stitch it to complete the circle. So you want to have 2 here, and you're going to slip stitch in here. To the second round, so you're going to chain 2, 1, 2, and you're going to do a double right into this gap here. These gaps are going to end up being your corners. Okay, so yarn over, through. But so once you enter into this corner, after that double crochet here, you're going to chain 2, 1, 2. You're going to do another double into this corner. And then you're going to do a double into this first stitch of the spoke, and then into the corner. Then you're going to chain 2, and do a double into that corner. And that's the key on each corner, is you're going to always have a double, chain 2, double in every corner the whole way through. So then I'm going to do a double into this first stitch gap. So in this round, you're going to have 3 doubles up here over the 1 double. This starts to get repetitive, so I'm just going to speed up. You want to keep your tension equal the whole way through. And then when you're coming into this section here, it's that first double goes right in that little hole, closed. And you're going to slip stitch it closed right in this first stitch here. Right now it still looks like a circle. It will, as we grow it out, the shape takes, like the corners begin to look like corners. And the reason I emphasized how these corners are formed, it probably seems like I'm making way too big a deal out of that. But in the videos I watched, that little tidbit about how these grow here was really what saved me multiple times and kept me grounded and anchored in what's happening. All right, so we're starting another row. I'm going to chain 2. I'm going to do a double right back in that stitch hole. And here we go, double. It's all doubles and chain stitches and slip stitches for the whole blanket. So we're in a corner, we just did a double. We're going to do 2 chains, a double, and then a double in every stitch. So there'll be one here, here, here. And I'm just going to speed up here. I think you can begin to follow. Here we are at a corner, so it's a double, chain 2, double. So every row, these sections are going to grow by 2. So it's 1, 3, 5. The next one will have 7. Put some nice music on for you as you complete these rows. And then you slip stitch to close it. Just get your needle under those 2 and pull it through all the way. So the next round we're going to chain 2 and start to grow it again. You're going to go in between this single one and these 2. So that's what I'm always looking for, is this little hole that's created by each stitch. There was really good stuff in this book by Francis Chan. So good that I listened to it once and then I bought the paperback book and underlined and took notes on it. And I include all the notes in the write-up that you can get on Learning to See Studio's membership at the Transformational Studio level. But a few things I wanted to really highlight here are, as diverse and differently gifted we are, our unity is what proves to others that God is real. And so a big question here is, what picture of God are we showing to the world? How are we letting our love for God, our amazement at His majesty and glory and power, and how He has rescued us and transformed us, how are we letting that override all of the divisiveness and division around us and truly love each other as He's commanded us to? And slip stitch to close. All right, so this is the size that I went to. So 1, 3, 5, and 7. And there is significance to why I stopped at that size. Numerically, 7 is the number of completion. Just liked that idea for the gift that I'm making. You can make an entire blanket that just continues to loop, loop, loop around. Make it the size that makes sense to you. So now I'm going to change colors and bring in the white. This is another little bit of a finesse kind of tricky section because you just have multiple threads to hang on to. So we have that slip stitch that closes this final round of yellow. I'm going to loop the white in, just pull a loop through. Then I'm going to cinch the yellow tight to hold that in place. Then I'm going to take the short tail of the white and hold that in place. Then I also have to find a way to create some tension on that top longer piece so that it is a consistent loop like the rest of my loops. I'm going to chain 2, yarn over, and I'm going to go back in that same stitch and make sure that I'm getting my needle under everything so I can pull yarn through. So I'm wanting to make sure that the yellow tail and the short white tail are getting woven in nice and secure. It's the same pattern with the white, just right now in this first section you're trying to do multiple things at once. You're changing the color and you're securing these two tails. I'll give you a little trick. If I have to stop at any point, I always just pull that out so that it'll take a bit to unravel it while it's in my bag. So you have your new color coming in here. You're just going to pull a single loop right through there. And you pull the previous loop tight because you want to cinch it in. I want to make sure I have enough of a tail on the white and the yellow so that I can hang on to it down here. Chain 2. Just want to keep your tension kind of the same as you've done on everything else here. You're going to do a double right into this hole, making sure you catch those tails with that loop. So you're burying those, you're securing them so that this transition can happen with no extra knots. And it's the same pattern that you've been following. You're going to do a double crochet in every stitch, and when you get to the corner, you're going to do a double. You're going to chain 2, and you're going to do a double. It's just a different color border so that when we bind it all together, the binding kind of gets hidden because it's the same color as this border. One thing I have done that it makes sense and it seems easier for me is when I cut those tails off. Oh, and make sure you cut the right long thread. Always a good thing to remember which color you're cutting off. I pull these tails a little tight and do a few more stitches. I'll show you why I do that. It makes burying it a little easier, which makes the trimming and cleanup when you get it all together easier if you don't have so many tails just sticking out all over the place. So just make sure that's cinched in. And I do a few extra stitches here to make sure when I pull this back in the proper tension area that see how those tails are they're gone. They're buried. I don't have to come back and bury them when I put the whole Afghan together. So this last round is going to be the same pattern as before. You're just going to have 9 stitches between corner posts. Do you see what I mean about just figuring out your tension and the way you're going to do this staying consistent? Then it's okay. Like if you have, I don't know if you saw that, somehow I got a thread a little bit off. I could leave it or I could go back and fix it. But if you're anything like me, you're going to make a ton of mistakes throughout. But if you're by and large consistent, there's a lot of those little mistakes that just disappear. It's all right. It evens out in the end. And as you go about it, as you make each piece here, you'll start to get the feel for if something is off in your count. So at one point, as I was putting it together, I realized that something was really off in the Afghan. I'm like, why is everything so off? Did I make one too small? Well, what I had done was I had messed up right in the beginning. I had messed up right in this center here. I had miscounted somehow and I only had 5 spokes. Had to undo that whole one and fix it. But taking an extra time, extra moment to make sure that you have this core piece here correct is gonna make sure that each row is consistent as well. And making sure that these corners are a double, chain 2, double. Remembering that little piece helps make sure that you keep the pattern consistent. And that's what's great about crochet is once you get the rhythm going, and the same is true with knitting, once you get the rhythm going, it's a great, almost like a fidget toy. It can help you focus. You can do it while you're watching certain TV shows or listening to an audiobook or listening to someone else talk. And it's not a distraction. It almost helps you focus. For some people, it might be a distraction. For me, it helps me hone in a little differently and just listen. Sometimes I love to like watch or listen to a sermon or something and take notes. And sometimes it's really nice to just really try to let it absorb through my ears while my hands and eyes are busy here on this little project. And also, as you're doing this, you realize it's incredibly repetitive in the motions that your hand and wrists are making. So don't do this for hours and hours at a stretch. Make sure if you start feeling tension in your wrists or in your forearms or in your neck or anything, that you take a minute, get up, get a drink, stretch your hands, stretch your fingers. I don't want anybody getting carpal tunnel or aggravating something or being sore as a result of art. But it's a nice meditative, rhythmic activity. Close this one up with a slip stitch. And then I'm going to do a second slip stitch. Trim a tail, pull it through, tighten it. Then that one's all bound together. And then I'm going to show you how I connect them. Using white hair, you're going to connect them using this back post. That is going to be key. So make sure you have them both right side up. And I can tell that because it feels like, here, you see how it curls down? I determined that this was my back side. And when it kind of curls up and you can see both posts of this stitch, that's my front side. And you're going to be combining these using this back post on both of them. So again, you have a front post and the back post. I start in the corners, and I have tried to keep these tails on different sides. So like if I had them on the same side, I feel like this part of the binding would get really thick. So just for some consistency, I've made sure that they're on different sides of being connected. I'm going to start in the corner, and it's essentially a whole bunch of slip stitches. So the corners are the exception. You're going to use the back post on all of the straight sides, and in the corners, you're going to go right through the middle. You're going to pull a loop through here, and you're going to go in through the top, and you're going to pull a loop through there, goes through that loop, and you're going to cinch that tail up so it's nice and secure. I'm going to do that one more time for you. Through the front of the corner, grab some thread, pull a loop through. You grab your second piece, it's again through the front of the corner, grab the yarn, pull it through that corner and that other loop you've got. And you can pull the shorter tail to cinch that up just a little bit. Firm, not super tight. And then for the whole side, you're going to go through the front of the back post, under the tail, bring it forward, and on the other one, through the front of the back post, grab your yarn, pull it through those two, and the other one that's on, you're going to pull it through all of them. All right, so through the front of the back post, or the top of the back post, does that make more sense? Grab the yarn and pull it through that back post. Go to the corresponding stitch over here through the top or the front of that back post. I'm going to grab the yarn, pull it through, and pull it through. The more secure your blanket gets, the easier this starts becoming. Pull it through the back post and go in on the other piece. From the front, you're going to go through that back post, grab your thread, your yarn, and you're going to pull it through all of those loops. And again, it's about keeping consistent tension as you go. And notice I still have this tail. I'm burying that in the middle. I'm always going to make sure that as I go through my back posts, that this tail stays on top of my needle. Through the back post. Did you notice how the tail got buried in there? See if you can follow that one. The back. If I can lay it out for you now. So you see how we're creating this little raised connection? Okay, so from the top, you're going to go through the front of the back post. This is your short tail. I'm just going to hold it here along the edge of the one, and I'm pulling my long tail that's connected to the whole ball of yarn right through that back post, keeping the short tail tight to the back post. Then I'm going to go through the front of the back post on the other piece that I'm connecting it to, grab that long tail and pull a simple loop through, and that one is going to loop through all of them. This took me a while to figure out, so I'm trying to go really slow. Hopefully it is coming through clearly for you. Sometimes it gets real tight on this last one in the corner because sometimes you're hitting a chain or a stitch that was real tight right on either side of the chain. So then when you get back to the corner, you're going in the corners. Remember, we go through the whole corner, not just the back post, the whole corner. And you're going to pull one through, right through the whole corner. Pull it through all of the loops. And then you're going to do one more slip stitch to create a knot. Cut it, pull it all the way through. And that is how you would start putting the blanket together, stitch by stitch. So the front of my blanket is going to have this raised binding stitch. And on the back, it would be very flat. So that would be one of your options too. It doesn't matter really which is the front or the back for you. That kind of binding stitch or connection point keeps one side really flat, and then this side has the raised section. So I'm going to pull up the whole big blanket here and show you eventually how I started connecting them. So in this one, I would connect starting at this corner. All the way along the straight edge to the corner, the straight edge, a corner, a straight edge, and I would do that slip stitch knot corner right here on this last one. So I'm going to go ahead and do that for you. It requires some patience and twisting of everything so that you can kind of get the angles all squared away so it makes sense to your body. So through the top, a loop, through the top. Obviously you can't see under there, I just grabbed a single loop right through. holding that one short tail along one edge here, and you're going to start going through the back posts to bind it just like we did before. And I found it having it on some kind of firm but soft support system here was nice. When the blanket started getting really big, you can put your needle right through, your crochet hook right through the back, and you kind of bounce it off of whatever is behind it, which also helps you line up stitches a little bit easier as well when everything's not moving around so much. This is always where I start getting some of my threads somehow separated, but in the grand scheme, that all evens itself out, and you can't really tell where you've made mistakes as you get the whole thing together. Reminds me of forgiveness. Sometimes I have even like not quite gotten these edges lined up, and so I just kind of make it work, so to speak. My dad used to always say, "Good enough for the size town we live in," trying to help us release some of that perfectionism. We're not machines. We're humans. We don't get it all perfect. Whoops, I just pulled some stitches out, so I can go back and redo that corner. My blanket is pulling itself right off of my table here. So where did I make the oops? Go right back into that corner. So here you have 3 corners merging. So I found those 2 corners, so we're going to go back into the middle of the corner, and then in the second corner, right through the middle of it. Okay, so that corner is connected. We'll have one more corner here to do. Sometimes it gets kind of awkward getting all the pieces lined up, so be patient with yourself, take a breath. Remember, you're going through the fronts of the back posts, and go really slow the first couple times. Like, be patient with yourself. As you do it, you start to figure out where all of those things are. The back posts, lining the stitches up, hooking the threads. It just starts to become a rhythm that you almost aren't even aware of thinking about. It becomes that autopilot kind of motion, which puts you into the flow, and you can think of other things. Good time to just meditate on scripture. Because I'm making this blanket for a friend of mine for her wedding, it's a great time to just be engaging in prayer for her and her future husband. All right, so I'm back to this merging of 3 corners. So right through the center of the corner, pull a loop through the center of the corner, pull a loop through all of them. So that completes that straight side. And then we're going to start this next side through the front, pull the loop. All right, you see this tail? I'm going to pull it over here so I can start burying that now instead of later. Through the front of this next corner, pull a loop through all of it. And that's the corner. And we have one last straight side on this merging. You can bury your tails as you go along, which really is going to save you significant time later. You're also free to leave these tails stick up wherever you want and bury them later. I just really enjoy skipping that step as often as I possibly can by burying them as I stitch. This is super tight. I don't know if you can notice that. Somehow I snagged an extra thread. Somehow it doesn't want to give. I am just going to let it be because, again, those little things, they're so minimal, minuscule, it does not affect the end result. And I think like right in here, I think I just found a mistake I made a long time ago. Can't see. I think I forgot a chain too, but I am not going to undo that entire thing. I'm just going to make it work. I've done that a couple times. I have forgotten those chain 2s in a couple places, and I've been unwilling to go back and undo things and redo it properly. So I just make my own corner happen by going through what I think would be the corner. So that's not an awesome one to end on maybe, but when the other one comes in, this corner I forgot a chain 2 on will just become a corner like the rest of them. So if you want to see how I did that, because that was kind of a mess of an example. I realized I forgot to do a chain 2, so I tried to just line up all the stitches appropriately or accurately here, and then where I think there should have been a corner, I just put it right through the middle of the stitch instead of the back post. So that is how, once I got the pattern and the blanket rolling, I did multiple sides at once to attach things. So my pattern, there's a couple ways of looking at how I did the great big pattern. I started in the middle with a brown one or a mushroom colored, and then I wanted it surrounded by the yellow or the biscuit color, and I moved that way. But then I realized there was another pattern developing, and if you went across in rows, it was 2 biscuit and a mushroom, 2 biscuit and a mushroom. And then it was on the second row, it was the same pattern, 2 biscuits and a mushroom, but I put this so it lined up between the 2 biscuits or yellows. So when I get it all finished, I'm going to do some kind of a final binding stitch around the whole outside, and I will post pictures of that. And again, in the write-up, I'm going to have links to people that I watched on YouTube to learn how to make this pattern and blanket, and hopefully that will be helpful to you if you need more detailed and proper words for explaining the different sections. I look forward to hearing your thoughts on Unity and what you might do with knitting, crocheting, weaving, yarn, or fabric art. It's always nice to experiment in your studio time or in your art making, your creativity with different mediums, different materials, and see what works best for you. I enjoy popping between multiple different things because, like I said, this is a great art thing, great craft for me to bring from place to place. This is the bag I've been carrying it in. There's a little pocket that holds the scissors and the crochet hook and balls or skeins of yarn. And I leave the blanket at home because it's getting heavier and bigger and bulkier and harder to manage. But this, I can easily carry anywhere. I can stash it in a bigger bag. I can pull it out when I'm waiting. I can redeem that waiting time and not be frustrated so much. It's an easy project to pick up and put down. Doesn't require a lot to get going. Thanks for watching. Take care. I hope you have a great day and learn to see yourself and God and others as you engage creatively in this world. There's a lot of lessons in that process of slowing down and just being. Sit in God's presence. He has knit you together from the beginning. He is continuing to knit you together or weave you together, put you together. Always more to learn about him and how he sees you and how he knits you together with others to create something so beautiful and amazing that it might not be to the other side of eternity that we actually understand who we were woven together with, how our little actions of obedience and faithfulness and prayer and love and forgiving actually worked out in the end. So stitch by stitch, moment by moment, something is happening, and we may not understand the whole pattern till later, but we know the one who knows the pattern. And when he is faithful, he is trustworthy, he is safe, and he is working it out for your good and my good and all of our goods. Sometimes that doesn't feel good in the moment, but in the end, it is for our good. And he can redeem any moment or any piece of pain or any tragedy. He can redeem it and restore us. Hey guys, I thought I would just pop on here to show you how I did the first round, transitioning into the second round of the border around this whole Hexagon Afghan. And I just did, with this darker brown mushroom color, a single crochet in every stitch. Hook through and hook through. Just one loop. If you remember on the rest of the Afghan, we were doing the double where you would loop over and then loop through. On the single crochet, you skip that loop over and you just go through the stitch, pull, loop through, pull, loop through. When you get to like the mountain, the peak corner, you do it just like all the other ones with a single crochet this time instead of the double. A single crochet, then you're going to chain 2, single crochet right into that corner, and then every stitch again, single crochets. You can pick any colors you want for this. They can be either of the hexagon colors, it can be the border color. I wanted to have some of each color in the border, so I looked at what kind of amounts of yarn I had left and decided to do a single crochet border of each color, and then I'm hoping I have enough yarn to do a double crochet border of white around the very final edge. When you come down into the valley or the dip where these hexagons join up, you're going to do it a little different. You're going to do a decrease stitch. So I have my single crochet here. I'm going to do a single crochet that joins these two. So I'm going to loop it through that corner and loop it through that corner before I finish my single crochet through. So I'll show that to you one more time. To join these, you're going to do a decreasing stitch where you single crochet 2 together. So loop through, and then you finish the single crochet. You see how that draws them together? And that is going to allow your valley or dip corner to lay flat. Every time I come to a tail, I'm trying to bury the tail now as I stitch instead of going back through the whole blanket with a fine-tooth comb, burying tails. I find it more efficient feeling. So once you get back to where you've started, you're going to do a slip stitch to join. So I'm going to get my other color here. To join here, it's the same as when you were transitioning colors before. You're going to pull a loop through, make sure you've got some tail here to hang on to, and you're going to tighten up the previous color so it's cinching it in. And because we're doing a single crochet, you just need that one loop. And you go right into these stitches, a single crochet. You're making sure to keep both of these tails together so that you can loop everything through and tie it off, hide it very nicely. So I'm coming back to a corner or a peak here. And just like on all the other corners, you're going to do a stitch in, 2 chains, stitch right into the corner, and then a single crochet into every stitch all the way around the blanket. So you just follow the pattern. Remember, every corner you're going to do the same. A stitch, chain 2, a stitch, and then a stitch in every stitch. And when you get to the valleys, you're going to merge a few together. All right, so here we are into the decreasing valley dip of the border. So I'm going to stitch those 2 corners together. So I'm going to loop right through that stitch, don't finish it, and loop through this stitch and then finish it, and then do my single crochets in the stitches along the straight. The whole point is you want these valleys and these corners, when you lay the whole blanket flat, you want it to lay flat. Also, if you don't want all 4 edges of your border to have the zigzags, like if you wanted to even out this side of your blanket and have the 2 sides flat, you can do a half hexagon. And then when you're doing your border, you kind of just make it work. You put a stitch where it should be to keep your tension right. Because on these stitches, it's not going to be a 1-for-1. You might have to put 2 stitches in here to create a solid border. And if you do this option, and I have links to a video that shows you how to do the half hexagon. If you decide to do this, I would definitely recommend going in your border color around the whole thing one time with a single crochet border so that you get a nice even border here to build your finishing border on. I decided I didn't want to do all those half hexagons, and I kind of liked the uneven border. It's just personal preference, however you want to do that. And again, I'm going to have links to specific videos and then also a link to my YouTube playlist of several different people giving their tips and tricks and tutorials on how to do a hexagon blanket. There's some super cool ones, different colors in every single hexagon. So this hexagon, you could have everything all one color. You could have it just a few colors. You could have patterns with the color, and you could have a totally multicolor rainbow explosion Afghan as well. So it could be a great scrap project. I really wish I knew how to do a raised edge here around this border because I like that look and it just sort of ends at the border. If anybody ever finds out how to do that, let me know. I didn't know how to do that raised border. Maybe I'll look for a tutorial on that, and if I can find that, I'll let you know. But I think that's just how it's going to be. It's going to have this raised border in the middle of the blanket, and the border will just be flat. I will get around the whole blanket here and throw in a short little snippet of how I do the finishing border with the double crochet of white. To build up for the double, you need 2 chains. So chain 2 up, yarn over into the stitch, right? Double crochet, yarn over. Then you're going to do the corner we've done this whole way through. Yarn over into the corner, do your double, chain 2, yarn over right into that corner, yarn over into that stitch. So here we come back to this valley, and you're going to merge those together. So you're going to yarn over, pull it through, yarn over. Now notice I didn't actually finish that one. You're going to yarn over, pull it through. Now you can finish and go to the next stitch. And I will do that one more time. Over. You're essentially going to do half of a stitch. There's half. Do another half of one. And then you're going to pull all of those together before you go to the next stitch. If you find that for some reason these are not laying flat, you can always decide to decrease it by 3 by stitching 3 of these together here in the valley, or 4. It really depends on the thickness of your yarn and the tension of your stitches. So if you wanted to do more together, you just do half of your double, half of your double, half of your double. And you want to make sure it's equal on both sides, right? And then to finish your doubles, whenever you're merging doubles together, it's on the very last one that you stitch through. So hopefully that is helpful to you, and I will post a picture of the very final one. I would love to see pictures if you decide to do this Afghan or any other crocheting or art projects that have been inspired by this idea of unity and how many stitches and many pieces work together to create a cohesive whole. I would love to see that. Please tag me if you do that on social media. Hope and Healing at Home or Jen, all word. All right, we're gonna try take 2 on this border. I kept trying to force the border, not happy with it. So I Googled some stuff online and ripped the border out because I learned how to do a raised edge. And this is actually called a back post double crochet. If something's really not sitting well with you, don't be afraid to undo. You put so much work in so far, you may as well finish it the way you want to. And again, it's personal preference how you finish it, but to do the back post double, if you want this raised edge here, like I've got this raised border around the inside, I wanted it around the outside as well. You're going to yarn over like you do for a double, and then you're going to put it through the back post here. So from the front, this is what you're doing. You're going around this post from the back. Pull through, just like a double. Yarn over, and then you're going to go from the back around this post, pulling it through, double. Yarn over, around the post to do the double. Do you see how that raises this front edge? This top stitch gets raised then, and I think it's way more consistent with this part here. Plus the thickness of this outside white border is going to match this thickness of the rest of my white border around the whole blanket. So I feel like this is a more consistent finish. And while I resisted undoing everything and I really just wanted to get everything done, I feel like this was the right answer. So I sat there and undid it. It is a little tricky. I have not quite gotten the hang of this whole back post double, but I am sure by the time I get around the whole blanket, I will. So in the corner, you just saw me do around this post here, the first post in the corner. Then you do the corner like normal. So right through the front of it, you do a double, chain 2, and you do a double. Just like all the other corners throughout the whole blanket. Then you're going to yarn over, and you're going through the back again, around that post. From the back, around the post, to pull it through and finish the double. So I'm going to flip it over so you can see from this side better. It's that post there that you're pulling it through. So as I was doing this, I'm like, well, isn't this like marriage, and isn't this like the work of trying to create unity? Is sometimes, despite our best efforts, we feel like we have to undo and redo when something's just not working right. Sometimes we have to try again and again and again, and to not just try to force something that we don't like, to not just be satisfied because we're tired of trying. All right, so this is the first time I'm coming up to a valley here. I'm going to do these like I've done the other corners. And then go back to the raised. Let's see, what do you think? Does that look kind of consistent with the rest of these? Does it lay flat? Yeah, that's probably good enough, huh? All right, so that's how we're going to do corners and valleys. You will probably notice if you watch some of the tutorials that I'll link you to, that they have done their hexagon a little bit differently than I have. They do some of their corners differently than I have, and that's okay. Find the system that works for you, that gets the shape going the way you want to. And there is more than one right way to get something done. More than one way to come to a compromise with people in your life. More than one way, one right way to relate to God. The goal is to be faithful to what God is asking of you, to connect with Him on a personal level and let Him flow through you to other people in your life. One thing I really loved about Francis Chan's book was the part where he talked about all the different things in life that we can care about. This world is huge. The needs are immense, and what God lays on my heart to be very sensitive to want to work hard for, is not what He lays on someone else's heart. And that doesn't make any of the causes, any of the methodologies right or wrong or better than or worse than. It just means they're different. And I need to not be mad at people for not caring about what I care about as much as I care about those things. Here I am on the corner again, just coming up into the corner here. For every stitch, we're doing that back post double. Then when we're in the corner, we just do it like we've been doing this whole blanket. Double, chain 2, double. Then we return to the back post double so that we can get this raised stitch. And sure enough, as I keep doing that, I haven't even done this many compared to what I'm going to have to do for the whole blanket border. And it is every stitch, every side here, it gets a little easier. There's some muscle memory already beginning. Okay, come up to the corner where we're going to stitch the corner together. Through, all the way through, back to a back post double. So I am much more satisfied with this look being consistent. I think it's good I ripped it out. For the final finishing touches of this gift for my friend, I went out and bought one of those daily flip calendars that you can use year after year after year, with blessings and verses and practical ways to serve and love each other in their marriage. And I went to the date of their wedding and added some embellishments with some metallic gold wax and a stencil. So hopefully this gives you ideas for how you can take studio time and art processes that you enjoy, that bring some insights to you of yourself, and learning to see and experience God differently, and then also even like bless others with your artistic creations. Thanks again for joining. I love this transformational studio time here with all the members of Learning to See. And if you have any questions about art processes, materials, art therapy processes, and ways to gain insight, art journaling, Bible journaling things, let me know. I want everything that I create to be a huge blessing and encouragement and a helpful resource for you. So drop me a personal message, leave a comment here. Make sure to ring that bell, press the subscribe button so that you don't miss anything, and share this with others that you think may be encouraged as well. Take care.